Okay, welcome back. In the previous lecture, we were looking at recursions, and also we defined S of nk, the Stirling number of the second kind, to be a number that counts the number of partitions of an n element set into exactly k blocks. Okay. So at the end of the lecture, we asked to try to prove the following result, the recursion formula, that S of nk is equal to S of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 plus k times S of n minus 1 comma k. I hope that some of you at least have been able to work this out, and in any case, we are going to see a proof now. So what we want to do is to show the identity S of nk is equal to S of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 plus k into S of n minus 1 comma k. So to do this, we find a bijection between the set of all partitions of a set of an element set to k blocks to some other sets, right, or union of sets. So how do we do this? Now, if you look at S of n minus 1 comma k minus 1, that is saying that we have to partition an n minus 1 element set to k minus 1 element set. So somehow we need to find a way to partition S of nk to two sets where one of them has cardinality S of n minus 1 comma k minus 1. Now, how do we do this? Well, look at a particular set, let us say set 1 to n. Okay, so let us say that S of nk it's very large, counts the number of partitions of the set 1, 2, 3, etc. n into k blocks. Okay, so now we have a partition of the set 1 to n into k blocks. Now look at the partitions itself, right? So we have if you take a partition P, let's say let P be any partition, so if you take this partition P, we can check check the block in which the element n is there, right? So what we are going to do is that we are going to look at the block in which the element n is there, because on the right hand side we see that we are only partitioning an n minus 1 element set. So we can look at the set 1 to n minus 1 and we have to work with that, right? So what we are going to do is that let us say that let us make the element n to be special and say that look at the block in which the element n belongs to. Let n be in the block let us say bi. Now, so we have this partition of the set into k blocks. Let us say that we have these blocks, right? And then we have the elements of the set, and in one of the blocks there is this element, the n, right? Now, we can look at two different cases. One case is that case 1, the block containing n is singleton, right? Because each block is a set. Now the block containing n is a singleton means that that block has, so that block, let's say bi, is equal to singleton n, right? There is nothing else there. Now, whenever a block contains n as a singleton, I can remove this block, and then what do I get? I will get k minus 1 blocks, which is a partition of the set 1 to n minus 1, because the element n is not there in any of the other blocks, and we have removed the singleton containing n from so that block itself. So we have k minus 1 blocks, and we have a partition of the n minus 1 element set 1 to n minus 1 to exactly k minus 1 blocks. So therefore, for every partition in which n is a singleton, we have a corresponding partition of the set 1 to n minus 1 in which n is not appearing, right? I mean, of course, and having exactly k minus 1 blocks. On the other hand, if you take any partition of 1 to n minus 1 into k minus 1 blocks, you can add a new block which contains singleton n, and this will be a partition n in S of n comma k, right? So therefore, there is a bijection between them. So therefore, all the blocks containing singleton n as singleton, right? All the partition containing n as singleton is in 1-to-1 bijection with S of n minus 1 comma k minus 1. So therefore, this part is already accounted for. Okay. So in this case, what we do? So we remove bi to get a partition of set 1 to n minus 1 into k minus 1 blocks. Since this map is a bijection, as we just observed, right? Since this map is a bijection, we can say that there are exactly, I think I need to add more pages. Let's say one page. Okay. Okay. So now, yeah, since this map is a bijection, there are S of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 partitions of the n set k blocks where n is a singleton. Block containing n is a singleton. Okay? So I should write block containing n. Where block of n is singleton. Okay, so that counts the first part. Now what about the remaining? So if n is not in a singleton block, then clearly there will be at least 2 elements in the block containing n, right? So if n is not in a singleton block, remove n from the block in which it is there. Remove n from its block. Now this block is non-empty and it contains at least one element, right? This block is non-empty and therefore we get a partition of the n minus 1 element set into how many blocks? Into exactly k blocks. Yeah, so if n is not in a singleton block, then remove n from its blocks, let's say bi, we will get a, so there is bi and then we subtract singleton n from that, right? So we will get a partition gives a partition of 1 to n minus 1 to k blocks, right? So now this same partition we would have got if instead n was a part of b1, right, or b2 or bk. So therefore corresponding to one partition in of the n minus 1 element set, right, 1 to n minus 1 into k blocks, we can get k different partitions of the n element set into k blocks, because you take this partition, just add the element n to any of the k blocks in k possible different ways, and we will still get a different partition of the set 1 to n. Okay? So therefore what we have is the following, that corresponding to the partition of an n minus 1 element set into k blocks, we get k distinct partitions of n element set into k blocks, and in each of these we observe that n is not a singleton because we have added n to one of the k blocks. So therefore they are disjoint from the earlier set that we were looking at, and therefore we can add them, right? So therefore we get that s of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 plus k into s of n minus 1 comma k. And we also saw that this one is a bijection, because for every such set we can produce a set here, right? And for every k, every k partition in the n minus 1 element set gives exactly k different partitions in that, and in any of those k partitions will give back precisely the single partition in the n minus 1 element set. So therefore this is a bijection, and therefore we have S of nk is equal to S of n minus 1 k minus 1 plus k into S of n minus 1 comma k. So this is our proof. Okay, now let us look at recursion for k element subsets. We already have looked at k element subsets, and this recursion relation that we are going to look at is already occurring in Meru-Prasthara. And in fact, I asked you to look at several properties of Meru-Prasthara that you can find, right, or Pascal's triangle that you can find. And if you have looked at this carefully, you would have already seen one of these properties that we are looking at. So let us say that the k element subsets of an element set is denoted by nk here. But now let us write it as C of nk, right? C of nk, just for writing it as a recursive relation, right? So C of nk is precisely n choose k, right? The number of k element subsets of an element set. Now we already proved, in fact, that this relation that n choose k is equal to n minus 1 choose k minus 1 plus n minus 1 choose k. Right? We used a combinatorial proof. We could also have done using algebraic techniques. Now, because we have this, we can directly use this property to write the recurrence relation, right? C of nk is equal to C of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 plus C of n minus 1 comma k. For 0 less than k less than n. With the initial conditions, C of n comma 0 is equal to 1. We already observed this, and C of n comma n is equal to 1, right? These two properties we already observed. These are the boundary conditions, and therefore it defines a recursion formula. Now let's suppose that we did not know a formula for n choose k, right? We already proved that n choose k is equal to n factorial divided by k factorial into n minus k factorial. But suppose we didn't know this. But suppose we actually tried out several examples and came up with a proof. Not came up with a guess that n choose k grows something like n factorial by k factorial into n minus k factorial. But suppose we did not have a proof, but only a guess. Now, we can use induction. If we have this guess, we can use induction to prove this from the recurrence relation, as we did in the earlier cases. How do we do? So we start the proof as follows, right? The base case is n is equal to k is equal to 0, and we observe that C of 0, 0 is equal to 0 factorial by 0 factorial into 0 minus 0 factorial, which is 1. So therefore the base case holds, and even look at the other initial conditions, k is equal to 0 or k is equal to n, and the initial conditions are satisfied by the induction hypothesis that n choose k is equal to n factorial by k factorial into n minus k factorial if n and k are strictly, one of them is strictly less than, let's say, less than 1. I mean, one of them is 0, or basically the boundary conditions right? So once it reaches the boundary conditions, the initial conditions are satisfied. This we can verify by substituting in the formula. Now this you can verify it yourself. Now what we do is that we substitute our induction hypothesis into the recurrence relation. So we have to prove that C of nk is equal to something, but now C of nk by the recursion formula is C of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 plus C of n minus 1 comma k. Now from the induction hypothesis, C of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 is n minus 1 factorial by k minus 1 factorial into n minus 1 minus k minus 1 factorial. And C of n minus 1 comma k is n minus 1 factorial by k factorial into n minus 1 minus k factorial. This is the induction hypothesis, right? So this holds for these two because we can do the induction on the sum of n and k, right? N plus k. So that one of them is smaller, the sum is smaller, then we can use the induction hypothesis. Now what is this? Well, this is easy. This is just adding up these two things with finding a common denominator. So if you multiply on the left side the numerator and denominator by let's say k, we will get k minus 1 factorial becomes k factorial, and if you multiply by n minus k on multiply by n, what do I want? No, n minus k on the above and below by n minus k on the right hand the fraction, we will get in below k factorial into n minus k factorial, right? So therefore we will get the common denominator. So therefore we can add. So what we will get is that we have k into n minus 1 factorial plus n minus k into n minus 1 factorial over k factorial into n minus k factorial. So this quantity is n minus k, right? Therefore we have n minus k. So what is this? This is k plus n minus k is n, and therefore we have n factorial by k factorial into n minus k factorial. So the guess works out, right? So therefore we show that n choose k is equal to k n factorial by k factorial into n minus k factorial for every n and k. So that's it. So we have a proof using induction as far as we have the guess. Now one might ask that we already know what is this n choose k, right? Even the formula. Then why do we even need the recursion formula, right? So the answer is that division is much more difficult to understand combinatorially than addition or multiplication. And in fact, if you want to write an algorithm, for example, right, we can obtain this as sum of earlier known values, where in this other case we have to find factorials of larger numbers, and then we have to do this as product and division. On the other hand, we can just use summation to find out all the values. For example, if you look at the Pascal's triangle or Meru-Prasthara, now you will see that if you sum these two, this is the identity that we have just written down. These two, we will get this one, right? Similarly, if you add this and this, we will get this. If you add this and this, we will get this, right? This will give this, etc., right? So we can even write down further, right? We will say that okay, what is this here, which is going to be 1, then 5, then 10, then 10, 5, and 1, right? So this way we can continue to write just by adding in the elements of the previous row. We can find the next row easily. So there are other reasons. We will come to that maybe sometime in the later part of the course. Now, I also gave you another homework question that I asked you to count the Sanskrit meters where the syllables have length exactly 1 or 2, and we wanted to count those meters which has length exactly n syllables. I mean exactly n. Where the length of the syllable can be either 1 or 2, right? So how many such meters are possible? How many distinct meters are possible with this property? And we already said that, like, we have something like this, right? We have, L denotes the 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 laghu or the short syllable, and G denotes the guru or the uh, double length 2 syllable. So to find a recursion formula, what we are going to do is to first try to find a relation between these two things, right? I mean, something to the earlier thing. Can we find such a relation? So we just look at the possible scenarios. So F0, right? Zero length means that there is, you can only do in one way, right? Basically, you don't write anything, right? There is precisely one way to do that. So therefore, F0 is 1. Now, what is F1? F1 is meters of length exactly 1. Now, if the meter has exactly length 1, we cannot use syllables of length 2, right? So guru cannot be used, only laghu can be used. So the only possibility is to have the singleton L, right? What about if the length is 2? If the length is 2, we can have either LL or G, right? LL has length 2 and G has also length 2. What about length 3 meters? Well, we can have 3 laghus, LLL, one laghu followed by a guru, or one guru followed by a laghu. And if you spend a little more time, you can figure out there is nothing else possible. So therefore, exactly 3 of them are. Now, one observation that we can make is that if the last syllable that we are going to add is a laghu, we are going to get uh, a meter of length exactly n from a meter of length exactly n minus 1. Right? So if you take any meter of length n minus 1, add a laghu at the end, you will get a meter of length n. Similarly, if you take a meter of length n minus 2 and add a guru at the end, you will get again a meter of length n. But these 2 meters are different because the last syllable is a laghu in the first case and a guru in the second case. And these are the only possibilities, right? Because every meter of length n must either end in a laghu or in a guru. Now, if you remove the last L, you will get a meter of length n minus 1. And if you remove the guru, you will get a meter of length n minus 2. So there is a bijection between the meters of length n minus 1 and the meters when ends in L. And there is a bijection between the meters of length n minus 2 and the meters that ends in a G. We can observe it here, like for example, in the set F3, right? We have, the ending is a G. Guru means that the previous one was length and one of the things in F1, which is just precisely 1, that is your L. And if it was a laghu, it could be any of the meters in F2, which is an LL or G. So once we have this observation, we get the recurrence relation, right? So Fn plus 2 is equal to fn plus 1 plus fn. So a meter, so this is what we just observed. A meter with length n plus 2 is obtained by adding L at the end of a meter of length n plus 1 or by adding G at the end of a meter of length n. So that is fn plus 2 is equal to fn plus 1 plus fn. So this recurrence relation is already known by name. Like now, these numbers are called Hemachandra Fibonacci numbers. In fact, earlier it used to be called just Fibonacci numbers, but then they found out that Hemachandra did the work before Fibonacci. He is an Indian mathematician, in fact, a Jain mathematician, if I remember correctly, who lived before Fibonacci. And in fact, this was known even much before. For example, I mentioned the Meru Prasara of Pingala, right? So the Pingala in his work on meters, his work is on meters called Chanda Shastra. Chandas is a meter. Basically describe these numbers. Okay, he doesn't give the formula or anything, but then he describes this, and he observed that this was this kind of a pattern, and there was some work in between. Pingala, who was in maybe 500 or 600 BC, to after around maybe 1,000 years, maybe like Hemachandra, and then later Fibonacci came. In between, there were some other work in which apparently these formulas were discovered, but we don't have the original. We only have the reference given by Hemachandra, who talks about some other mathematicians who did discover this formula. But we still give the credit to Hemachandra because we don't have the original manuscript. Okay, anyway, so these are called Hemachandra or Fibonacci numbers, and we have the so the Fibonacci numbers or Hemachandra numbers occurs several times in literature. I mean, in combinatorics, it occurs naturally in many places in the nature, right? Because the numbers will be something like 1, 1, then 2, 3, and 5, and 8, 13, right? Because I had the previous thing, 21, 34, etc. And if you look at many or most of the flowers will have their number of petals will be in this, and there are many other things. And we can try to find out a formula to calculate the Fibonacci numbers. We will do it later when we look at generating functions. There are also other ways to calculate the formulas from the recursion relation. Maybe you can try, can we do find the formula for Fibonacci or Hemachandra numbers by using your own methods. Just give it a try. It will be fun. Okay, now, so we were looking at partitions of n into exactly k parts. Suppose we don't worry about exactly k, but we want to partition into any number of parts, right? Now, how many are there? Okay, so of course we know that if you sum over all possible k ranging from 1 to n, we will get all possible partitions. So therefore, if you sum over all the Stirling numbers of second kind, Snk, where k ranging from 1 to n, again we will get the number of all partitions. Right? So therefore, this number called Bell number can be calculated by the summation. Now, what I want you to do is to prove the following recurrence relation of Bell numbers. So Bell numbers follow the following recurrence relation. That is the theorem that b of n plus 1 is equal to summation k is equal to 0 to n choose k, b of k, where b of 0 I define to be 1. Okay. So B of n is the number of all partitions of n, the set 1 to n to any number of blocks, right? So that is the definition, and it should satisfy the recursion relation. So similar to the argument that we did in case of SNK, prove that B of n also satisfies a recurrence relation that is given here. Okay, so that is a homework. Now we already looked at what is called compositions of integers, right? So we have weak composition and we have compositions, right? Now something very closely related is integer partition. Okay, so an integer partition of an integer n is a sequence, let's say mu is equal to mu1, mu2, etc., mu k, of positive integers such that summation mu I is equal to n, and mu1 greater than or equal to mu2 greater than or equal to etc., greater than or equal to mu k. So the only difference is the last part, right? So we wanted a composition of integer to be the positive integers where, let's say, lambda 1 to lambda k such that summation lambda I is equal to n. But now we are saying that okay, we also want to write this in decreasing order, right? Mu1 greater than or equal to mu2 greater than or equal to etc., mu k. Or in other words, what we are saying is that we don't really worry about the order, right? Right. So in the composition, we were saying that okay, if 1 is appearing at the first position and 2 is appearing in the second position, is different from 2 is appearing at the first position and 1 is appearing at the second position. But here we are saying that okay, we will make all of them uniform by writing in the decreasing order. So therefore, we are not really worried about the order there, right? So that is what it makes the difference. So integer partitions are precisely partition of the integer to let's say k smaller integers such that their sum is positive integers such that their sum is exactly n. Now the number of integer partitions of a given integer n, right, the total number of distinct partitions is denoted by p of n, and p of nk is the number of integer partitions of n into exactly k parts. Now given a partition integer partition mu, the length of the partition mu is the number of distinct parts, which is k. Right? If mu is mu into mu k, the length of mu is the number of its parts, which is k, and the area of mu, right, denoted by mu within two lines, is n, right? The number that mu is partitioning. So that is called area. So why it is called area, we will see very soon. So let us look at some examples. So let us take the number, let us say 5, and we want to find the partitions of 5. So what are the partitions of 5? Well, 5 can be written as just itself, right? Or you can write it as 4, 1, right? You can write it as 3, 2. You can write it as 3, 1, 1. Then you can write it as 2, 2, 1, right? Then you can write it as 2, 1, 1, 1. Then you can write 1, 1, 1, 1, right? These are possible ways of writing 5 as decreasing numbers, right? Sum of decreasing numbers. How many possible ways are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So P of 5, if I have not missed anything, right, P of 5 is equal to 7. Right, partitions, the total number of partitions of 5, there are 7 of them. Now, what about P of 5 comma 1? So, how many partitions of 5 are there into exactly one part? There is only one, right? 5 itself. What about P of 5 comma 3? So, we need exactly 3 parts. So, what are the exactly 3 parts? There is one here, there is one here, and that is all I can find, right? So, there are 2 ways. What about P of 5 comma 4? Again, if you look at this, there is only 2, 1, 1, 1, and there is nothing else I can find, right? So there is exactly 1. Similarly, you can ask for P of 5 comma 2, 5 comma 5, right? And if you add all of these things, it should be again 7, right? So yeah, we can even just write it. P of 5 comma 2 is equal to P of 5 comma 5 is equal to, right? What is P of 5 comma 5? Exactly 1. 5 comma 2 is, there is 4, 1 and 3, 2. So there are 2. And if you add 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2, you get again 7, right? So that is okay. Now, so just a remark, the number of compositions of n, right, is 2 raised to n minus 1. Now, I don't remember whether we proved it or not. I think we have not. So I can give it as a homework. So homework, prove that the number of compositions of n is 2 raised to n minus 1 by finding a bijection to a suitable set. So define a set which has exactly 2 raised to n minus 1 elements, and then show that there is a bijection from the number of compositions of n, right? I mean, bijection from the set of all compositions of n to the set with 2 raised to n minus 1 elements. So that will prove that number of compositions is 2 raised to n minus 1. Now, on the other hand, P of n, right? So, see, like for the number of compositions, we have a nice formula, right? 2 raised to n minus 1. On the other hand, P of n is kind of difficult to find a nice formula. But actually, one exists. And this formula was given by Hardy, Rademacher, and Ramanujan. So the formula is as follows. I will just state it. It's as follows. P of n is equal to 1 by pi square root of 2 summation k is equal to 1 to infinity ak of n square root of k into d by dx of sine hyperbolic of pi by k in square root of 2 by 3 into x minus 1 by 24 divided by square root of x minus 1 by 24 evaluated at x is equal to n, where ak of n is summation over all 1 less than or equal to h less than or equal to k, gcd of h comma k is equal to 1, omega hk e raised to minus 2 pi I n h by k, and omega hk is a specific complex 24kth root of unity. Okay, so this is the formula that is given by Hardy, Rademacher, and Ramanujan, and this is, this finds it exactly, right? P of n is equal to this, which is itself is very surprising, and as you can see, it's not very easy to calculate. Now, yeah, so there are some approximations of this from the expansion of this formula, but that is not again something that we are going to look at. Okay. Fine. Now, as a homework, you can enumerate, right, all integer partitions of 7 and 8. So basically, write down the integer partitions of 7 and 8. How many are there? Count the number of them, and also write each one individually. this is a nice homework to just just to count. Now we can also prove a recursion formula for counting P of nk, where the integer partitions of n into exactly k parts. So P of nk is equal to P of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 plus P of n minus k comma k, where n and k are positive. With the initial conditions, P of n comma k is equal to 0 when k greater than n or k less than 0, or n greater than 0 and k is equal to 0, and equal to 1 when n is equal to 0 and k is equal to 0. Okay. So when both n and k are 0, it is 1, and if other cases n greater than 0 and k is equal to 0, it is 0, k is strictly less than 0, it is 0, and k greater than n, it is also 0. So using these boundary conditions, we can try to prove the to find the bounds. If you get an idea how to work this out, you are welcome to try. Now we are going to prove the recursion relation by the following. Okay, so what are we going to do is we are going to prove the recursion formula by again writing P of nk, which is the number of P of nk is the number of all partitions of n into k parts. So what we do is that we look at the set which is the set of all partitions of n into exactly k parts. Of course, its cardinality will be P of nk, right? So we'll write capital P of nk as this set of all such partitions, and then we are going to write P of nk, capital P of nk, the set, as a disjoint union of two sets, and show that they are in bijection with partitions of n minus 1 into k minus 1 parts and partitions of n minus k into k parts. So I want you to think about this and try to do it yourself. I gave you the idea, but it would be better if you actually try to do it yourself. So try to spend some time thinking on this and find out how to find a bijection to this on the set is on the left side and the sets that we are counting on the right hand side. So here we are going to do the following. Okay, so what we do is that we will write two sets. Let's say P, Q and R, right? Let us write Q, two sets Q and R, where the set Q counts some particular type of partitions, and R counts another type of partitions. So what are these type of partitions that it is going to count? So let P of ij be the set of all integer partitions of I into j parts. So therefore cardinality of P of ij is small p of ij. Now for n and k positive, let us write P of nk as Q disjoint union R, where Q is the set of all partitions mu1 to mu k that is in P and k, such that mu k is equal to 1, which is the last part is 1. Okay, so mu k is the smallest part, right? The last part, that is 1. And then I will write R as the set of all partitions in P and K, such that mu k is strictly greater than 1. So now, since we are writing in the decreasing order of numbers, when the last part are different, then the sets must be disjoint, right? But now, since we are looking at all possible partitions where mu k is equal to 1 and mu k is strictly greater than 1, they will cover all partitions into exactly k parts. So therefore, Q union R will have exactly Pij elements, right? So that is clear. Now, we want to find a bijection from Q to the set of all partitions in P n minus 1, K minus 1, right? Now, that is easy because, well, what you do is that you take the partition mu1 to mu k, and mu k is equal to 1. So, what you do is you just remove mu k, right? So, you will get a partition mu1 to mu k minus 1, but this is a partition of n minus 1 into k minus 1 parts, right? Because we have just subtracted 1, because mu k is equal to 1, we just subtracted 1, and we have removed one part. So, therefore, we have exactly how many parts? We have exactly a partition of n minus 1 into k minus 1 parts. Now, if you take any partition of n minus 1 into k minus 1 parts, we can add a 1 at the end and we will get a partition in Q, right? Because it is ending in mu k and it has exactly k parts and the sum is equal to n. So, therefore, there is a bijection. Similarly, if you take R, and we know that mu k is strictly greater than 1, which means that all of the mu i's are strictly greater than 1, right? Now, since all of the mu i's are strictly greater than 1, I can subtract 1 from each of them. If I subtract 1 from each of the mu i's, I will get mu I minus 1, mu I minus 2, etc., mu k minus 1. And therefore, the sum of the mu i's, the new mu i's, are going to be, or mu I dash, let's say, are going to be exactly n minus k because we subtracted 1 from each of the k mu i's, right? So, it is a partition of n minus k into k parts. But now, again, this is also a bijection. Why? Because you take any partition of n minus k into k parts, exactly k parts, I can add 1 to each of the parts and I will get a partition of n minus k, and because I added 1 to the last part, that last part will be strictly greater than 1, and therefore we have that belongs to R. It's a partition of n into k parts. So, therefore, this gives the entire bijection, right? So, we have P of small n k is equal to P of n minus 1 k minus 1 plus P of n minus k comma k. So, to write it more formally, so we claim that cardinality of Q is equal to small p of n minus 1 comma k minus 1 and cardinality of R is equal to small p of n minus k comma k. Right? The proof is as follows: mu1 to mu k maps to mu1 to mu k minus 1 is a bijection from Q to p of n minus 1 comma k minus 1. Right? It's a bijection because I can just add 1 at the end from any element in p of n minus 1 k minus 1 to get an element in Q, and vice versa, right? I can remove 1 at the end to get an element of p of n minus 1 comma k minus 1. Similarly, mu1 to mu k, the function maps G maps mu1 to mu k to mu1 minus 1, mu2 minus 1, etc., mu k minus 1. The total sum is going to be n minus k, and therefore it's a partition of p n minus k to k parts, right? P of n minus k comma k. And again, this is a bijection because I can add 1 to each of the partitions in p n minus k comma k, and I will get a partition of n into exactly k parts again, where the last part is strictly greater than. So that is it. So we now using the addition rule, because they are disjoint sets Q and R, we get the recursion relation. Okay, so here is a very interesting homework. It's kind of surprising because I'm going to define P star of nk to be the number of integer partitions of n, with the first part being exactly k. Okay, so mu1 is equal to k, right? So we have mu1, mu2, etc. So the largest part is k, right? So P star nk counts the number of partitions of n, integer partitions of n, where the largest part is k. So P of nk was the number of integer partitions of n into exactly k parts. Now we are saying that the largest part is k. Now show that P star of nk is equal to P of nk. So basically the number of partitions where the largest part is k is in bijection with the number of partitions where the number of parts is k. Now this is very surprising, but but it is still true. So I want you to find this proof, and when you do the proof, make sure that you use only the ideas and relations that we have come across of. I mean, in the results that we have used so far. Of course, you can use some new idea, but that is okay. But we will use only the results that we have come across so far, because we are going to come up with a very different proof for the same, which is a pictorial proof. So that is going to be presented, but we don't want that proof to be used here. So try to come up with a proof on your own.